Welcome to Yoga Biz Studio, a weekly internet show consisting of 10 to 30 minutes in length, hosted by me, Keeley Mitchell, the principal of Z Living, and my colleague,
Carla Wilson, owner of Wilson Media Services.
in which we will share business, legal, and marketing insights for yoga studio owners as well as independent yoga teachers. For our Yoga Biz Studio webcast, we use Google Plus Hangouts on Air. This gives us a little flexibility about how people can view our show. So you're either watching this via our website, yogabizstudio.com, or you're on Google Plus event page for today's show, or you're watching it via YouTube. How Our Google Plus event page has a Q&A panel on which you can ask questions and make comments, and as well as YouTube should be a little spot below. I think it's a yellow button, Carla, that they can click on
Yes.
if they have any questions. So we always welcome questions. We love to answer them, so please, at any time, feel free to chime in. If you are, I already said that, sorry. Carla and I will do our best to monitor the Q&A, and so when you put in your comments, we'll try and get them into the discussion as soon as we can. So let's move on to today's episode. Today's episode, we are focusing on how to pick teacher training programs and a trade association. Carla and I have discussed this topic between us as well as with other yogis, and it's clear that there's no right answer, but yet a worthy discussion to have. Carla, why don't you start us off with the trade associations? Do we belong to trade associations in order to be successful or not?
Thanks, Keeley. When we were brainstorming show ideas, we were reminded of a meeting we had recently at a studio, and we'd made a presentation about marketing and legal and business tips to this group of teachers, and then after the presentation, one of them approached us. We actually just kind of started chatting after the presentation, and the discussion turned to renewing your membership with a trade association. And this yogi's basic question was, is it worth it for me to belong to a trade association? She was just really having a hard time justifying the price of the membership and what return she would get on it. Needless to say, as business consultants, Keeley and I were able to impress upon her the importance of membership, but, it's different for each person, right, Keeley?
Carla, I agree. I definitely don't want to say that belonging to a trade association is required to be successful. It's definitely not. There are many who do not belong to an association, and they're very successful out there. So I agree with you, but there are benefits that you can get from it.
Right, exactly. So that's really what we wanted to talk about today. We wanted to stress from a business point of view that trade association membership for about $10 a month gets you many benefits.
And I'm going to quickly chime in and also say that the cost of membership is also tax deduction. It is considered a business expense. So if you're worried about that $10 per month expense, it's actually, you can do a tax deduction. Sorry, Carla, to interrupt. I'll give it back to you.
No worries. That is a good reminder for everybody. One of the main benefits of membership are those teacher designations that you've earned. If you did your teacher training through a yoga studio that is a Yoga Alliance approved school, then more than likely at the end of your training you became a member of Yoga Alliance and then were able to gain your RYT designation. Using those letters gives you some clout and helps to differentiate you from other yoga teachers. So, that's something to keep in mind, because if you drop your membership, then you no longer have the use of those letters behind your name. Other benefits of membership in a trade association, very typically with trade associations, because they are big organizations, they are able to have buying power. So they're able to give you discounts on insurance, office supplies, and other necessities for running a business. Another fact we want you to consider stems from this the conversation that Keeley and I actually had on last week's episode, which concerns music licensing. And I encourage you to go to our website and, take a listen to that conversation. But, it was really kind of a discussion about with an organization like Yoga Alliance. They've got the people power and the money to then be able to approach the professional music organizations like ASCAP and BMI, about being able to create some kind of license for yoga teachers. A standalone yoga studio owner wouldn't have that kind of, wouldn't have those kinds of connections to be able to make that kind of discussion with them. So that's something to think about too. I mean, that's just one example of how you have the strength and support of a trade association behind you. The other thing about trade associations is that they typically run really awesome conferences throughout the year. That will give you opportunity for continuing your education and for networking. So again, for about $10 a month or even less, you have the support of an organization, you have buying power, you have the designations you can use in your for marketing yourself and your personal branding. You have networking, and you also have conferences. So as a business owner, membership in a trade association really is a no-brainer. And as a note here, I will mention that in addition to the Yoga Trade Association that I belong to, coincidentally I belong to Yoga Alliance because my studio was an RYS, a registered yoga school via Yoga Alliance. In addition to that membership, I'm actually a member of another trade association. I've been a virtual assistant for 10 years, and I have been a member of my virtual assistant trade association for those 10 years. To me, I felt like going into business for myself was kind of you get kind of lonely, and it's hard for you to kind of make the decisions in your business, but when you make connections via a trade association, you don't feel so alone. So for me, trade association membership really is a non-negotiable item in my budget.
Now, while the first trade association we think of for yogis is Yoga Alliance, I did want to put out there that there are other associations out there that you may be interested in joining. For example, there's the International Association of Yoga Therapists, there's the Iyengar Yoga National Association of United States, and Kripalu Yoga Teachers Association. So that was one I just discovered when we were preparing for this episode. So there's a lot more out there, but those are 3 additional examples of trade associations out there that you might be interested in taking a look at. Also, one benefit that all of these associations provide is the ability to have a community to network and seek assistance from. Carla mentioned that, but it is priceless to be able to get among people who are similarly situated and have someone to bounce ideas off of for your business, or just talk about maybe some of the struggles you're having. Someone else might have experienced it as well and might have a solution you never thought of. So I think that's just really a priceless benefit of belonging to a trade association. The other half of this discussion concerns before you even become a teacher and need to be concerned with joining a yoga trade association. How does one go about finding the correct teacher training course to ensure their success? And really the big question is there even a universal right teacher training course? This is a question that I have been asked by some people who approach me before they're even yoga teachers, and they're thinking in the long run about their business, and they start asking me like, well, what school should I attend? Do I really need to go to a RYS school? And all of these questions. So before I answer, I'm going to kick it back to Carla to hear her thoughts on that question.
Yeah, for me, Keeley, in getting my teacher training, I felt I was in the right place at the right time. Over the course of probably 10 or 12 years, I had practiced at a studio for a really long time. Over that course of that time, I had several opportunities to take teacher training at that studio, but something just didn't sit right with me about the studio owner. It just something wasn't saying, click, this is the exact right thing for you. It wasn't until I ended up following one of the teachers from that studio who left to open her own. That when she was ready to launch her teacher training, I just really felt like that was really going to be the best decision for me. So I don't think that there is one universal right program, but only the program that you feel is right, that you want to share with others. And what do you think about this, Keeley?
I definitely don't think there is a universal, as I put in quotes, right yoga school for everyone. When I am posed with this question by people, I really do tell them to follow their gut and intuition, which sounds like that's what you did. Like you might not have realized it at the time, but the first one wasn't sitting right with you. But then when the next one came around, you were like, okay, this seems right. One's yoga practice is so personal, so I feel as though the decision has to come from deep within. However, I know there are many out there that are more methodical and trying to decide between schools. And for those of you out there, here's my advice. First, do some introspection, contemplation, meditation, whatever you want to call it, on why you want to teach yoga. It actually will impact kind of where you go to school. Do you feel compelled to teach, or do you kind of just want to do this as deepening your practice? Do you want to be world famous? Do you prefer to just teach part-time, after school program? Being able to answer these type of questions may steer you in the right direction. 2, definitely compare your courses. They are not all created equal. If you're seriously considering teaching full-time and running a successful yoga business, consider courses that not only teach you the proper postures and sequencing, but also focus on developing your teaching skills as well as your business skills. Remember, running a yoga business is not just about teaching. It's also how skillful of a teacher you are, because you want people to continually come back to you. That would be your bread and butter. And then running a business, knowing how to do it, is so important.
Right. Yeah, Keeley, I'm going to interrupt you here and say that I can't agree more. When I made that decision to take the training at my studio, I knew that the curriculum included, the usual suspects, the postures, the sequencing, some yoga history, knowing what to say and when, but also we had discussions about how to market ourselves as yoga teachers and then differentiating ourselves from other yoga teachers. So what other advice do you have, Keeley?
I actually have 5 other key points people should consider when selecting a yoga teacher training course. First, determining if the program is a registered yoga school, an RYS. This may be important to some, not so much to others, but as we said earlier, there are benefits of being a part of the Yoga Alliance community. Second, look at how experienced your primary teachers in the courses are. To become a skillful yoga teacher, you need to learn more than just the basics of alignment and a bunch of Sanskrit. A lot of what you learn from your primary teachers will result from their years of practicing and studying and working with, thousands of other students. That's what they're bringing to the table. So really try and find yourself experienced teachers to learn from. Third, how many students does the program accept? Do you learn better in smaller groups? How much personal attention you will receive in a 60-plus class? Mm-hmm. Sometimes the larger, you might start to feel like they're just collecting the money in and you're not getting as much personal attention. So once again, that's a personal decision. Some people will be fine with that. Others might need, a smaller class so they can have more personal attention. Fourth, how much yoga experience is required to apply for this course? I'm just weary about courses that do not require a minimum amount of years study for yoga before you enter into the program. And if you have someone who's been studying for, say, 3 or 4 years at least, and the program has no minimum, you might be at a disadvantage, to the fact of really, enhancing your practice, because they might be starting at such a basic level for people who have never practiced yoga before, but got in their minds that they wanted to be a yoga teacher or something like that. So that's something really key to think about. And then lastly, how long will it take to get certified? I know there's courses out there that take 8 months plus, to get certified. And to me, that makes sense, because there's so much to learn in yoga. I mean, there's philosophy behind it. There's the history of it, and some courses even talk about the proper diet that's supposed to go along with it. And then there are, the infamous courses that are extremely intensive and can be completed in a month or so. Some are even less than that. So I will not go deep into that. It's just, it's something to consider and to think about of how long it's going to take you to get certified, and what does that speak to about the actual program.
Right.
So there are many more. Sorry, Carla. There's many more factors that individuals can consider. I think Carla and I in this discussion have got to a good starting point to help most future teachers figure out what is the right course for them, and maybe with the other factors we didn't cover, kind of be able to have a guide now to what they should be thinking about or how they should approach it.
Right. Excellent. Excellent points, Keeley. We felt that having this conversation would help yogis out there. Maybe you hadn't considered some of these factors to choosing a teacher training program, or maybe the benefits of having membership in a trade association, but we wanted to get the conversation going so that it can help you in your own decision-making process.
Carla, I definitely think we got the conversation started. So let's move on to our today's takeaway segment. If you are not currently a member of a yoga trade association, consider doing some research on the different associations that are out there. If you visit the yogabizstudio.com website, we will have links to the associations that we mentioned on this episode. But there's plenty more out there, so feel free to Google away and see if there's something that interests you. And if you find a great trade association, please feel free to share it with Carla and I. We love learning. Do some research also on weighing the pros and cons of joining the trade association. Everyone is different, so really just take the time to think about it. With respect with selecting a teacher training program, this week's takeaway is to do your research too. Make sure you invest your time and money into a program that is right for you. Not that it's supposedly the right yoga school for everybody, but what is right for you and for what you want to achieve. If you operate a teacher training program, then review your curriculum and see maybe if there are any changes you need to make. Does your program offer help on developing teaching skills? Do you offer any business skill courses?
And this is where I will say just a huge hint, and shameless plug here. Keeley and I are available to speak at your teacher trainers, at your teacher trainings on business and marketing topics. Just reach out to us. We would love to make a presentation to your teacher trainers and help them launch and get started in their own yoga business. We would love to help out. So just reach out to us and let us know. On our next episode, we will be discussing the basics for starting your yoga business. We'll cover some of the great free and low-cost resources for you to consider. So tell your friends, and we will see you here next Thursday, May 15th at 2 p.m. In the meantime, please feel free to message us with your questions or show ideas. Our email address is yogabizstudio@gmail.com. Or you can reach out on the networks of Google+, Facebook, or Twitter at our handle, YogaBizStudio.
Thanks, Carla, and thank you, our audience, for joining us today. Our Yoga Biz Studio is brought to you weekly by me, Keeley Mitchell of Z Living, and Carla Wilson of Wilson Media Services. Until next week, namaste.
Namaste, everyone.